Do you have?
Please approach to the front, please.
Are you
We need
somewhere?
you closer.
I just don't want to
We
be in
will
the
not bite you. The room is very big. We would like to see you here near us. We have been 3 years far away from each other, so please come forward.
So, we thought you would.
Oh, this is live.
Is that?
Mic is on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very intimate room. Please, could you, those who are on the back, could you please approach? This is really big for us. We really would like to see you and to share with you. So, we are going to do this as intimate as possible. Okay. Okay, this is a session organized by the Excited Space Group. The first thing we wanted to say with the Space Group is that we are celebrating our 10th anniversary. So that's, we are a very young group. Okay, we had yesterday a very, let's say, rich session, full of content, full of sharing, full of the different international partners, the different programs, the different achievements, next step, what we are going to do in space. We are not here for that today. We are for something completely different, actually. We want to explore how to create bridges between the space science. Sorry, I lost my voice yesterday speaking so much. So how to create bridges between the space science, between culture, art, design, experiences for visitors. Actually, we have the objective to discuss how to reach new audiences, and audiences that a priori are not interested by the space and by science. So we will share with you with the different projects, several projects that have been developed with this aim. And Anna is going to ask you something.
Yes, and please start thinking about what are your ideas on the subject, what are exhibitions or activities that you have in preparation in your science centers and museums that relate to the topic, because in the end, I am going to go there and ask you to talk. So I am going down right now near you to start looking you in the eye, so that in the end, when my colleagues finish talking, you can also contribute with your experiences, examples, and also ideas, okay? So thank you. I'll now go near you.
And prepare yourselves. So please, Miriam.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good. As Maria has said, the project that we presented this afternoon is a project that responds to a close collaboration between European Space Agency and City of Art and Science, where we have used new ideas and formats so that through art we could reach science. Okay. Is art science? Is science art? We have spent decades separating and differentiating art from science and vice versa. But although, at first glance, both disciplines may seem different and even opposite in reality, this is not entirely true, since there are links between the two of them. In other words, science and art are fully connected. From an elementary point of view, we all tend to base ourselves on life experiences and to explore new ones in order to understand or to give meaning to the reality that surrounds us. In other words, and without considering the way of seeing and reading the world, nature, and the universe in general, both artists and scientists seek answers to those questions that they don't have. In this sense, science and art are two equal manifestations. Science, they share the same objectives, to explore and understand our position within the cosmos. Starting from this premise, we can establish a series of analogies and connections between art and science. Both are born or arise from creativity. Both promote, encourage, and carry out the introduction of changes, innovation, or improvement over the really exists. Both use abstract models to understand to the world. Both create of art or universal works, as we can see that this slides. We could say, maybe, science is more theoretical and rational, while art is more practical and emotional, though both understand each other and complement each other perfectly well. A sculpture or a painting needs of science and technique to be made, but without the creative part, the conception of the idea and the creation wouldn't make sense at all. We are talking about applied arts or the science applied to art. We all know the artists and scientists have different ways of seeing and understanding information and knowledge. The first ones based on intuition and emotion, while later ones. Although intuition is part of creation, pose and build their hypotheses and theories on real and tangible data. Art can be intuited without understanding, while the scientists can understand without having intuited. Since the human being felt the need to discover and explain the mechanism that originated the phenomena they observed in celestial ball, the movement of the stars, the phases of the moon, the eclipses, the orbits of the planets, he has used drawings, illustrations, engravings, and diagrams to capture these changes in different ways, and they have played a prominent role in the generation of scientific knowledge. Similarly, scientific advances have contributed and caused artist changes and improvement, as well as the creation of new techniques and pictorial, architectural, or sculptural styles. This key fact has triggered an evolution and revolution in the field of the art that has not stopped this since in beginning. An example of the origins of the connection between science and art can be found in the beautiful illustration of the first globals that we are used to former times to teach in the classrooms. No less well known are the magnificent plates created by German mathematician and cartographer Andreas Cellarius. Unlike the celestial globe, represent a clear model of art as a generator of scientific knowledge. History is full of these kind of examples, not only in the field of astronomy, where this symbiosis, but also in botany, medicine, geography, and even architecture, we have sample of this mutual understanding between the two disciplines. This relationship between art and science, or science and art, has been policed and evolved over the centuries. Well, we could be talk and debate about this relationship and its implications for a long time, but I don't want to go on much longer, so let's continue with the presentation. This is the City of Arts and Science in Valencia, where art and science meet, composed of 6 buildings. Among them is Science Museum. The complex itself is turned into architecture, building with impossible structures that, thanks engineering, technology, and science, represent true work of art. They are architectural sculptures. It's a space where 3 million worldwide visitors receive yearly. So the dissemination of culture in general and of art and science in particular goes hand in hand to connect, arouse curiosity, teach, and transform us without a stop-provoking emotion, knowledge, and fun. To achieve this goal, the conceptualization use many types of formats on which we work, and this example is one of them. What is zero gravity? But let's go a little further back. What is the role of the agency at the museum? To answer this question, we have to go back to 2001, when Heading to the Cosmos exhibition was inaugurated, marking the beginning of the relationship between the Science Museum and the European Space Agency. This collaboration has been narrowed and settled over these 20 years. The proof of this is the set of outreach projects, both through exhibitions, activities, courses, of rigorous scientific content that have been carried out jointly. The formula for achieving this success is simple and at the same time very effective. The ESA provides this element, information, and connect for carrying out this project. The Science Museum has been in charge in developing and producing these projects, providing the necessary means to carry them out, to the point of turning them into exhibition activities that the public visit our facilities. We can see some example of this collaboration work between both institutions, such as the Simulator Space Academy, the exhibition on the Hubble telescope, or the Space of Adventure. The last collaboration has been in the exhibition Mars, the Conquest of the Dream. All of them with the aim of bringing the agency's projects, programs, and missions closer to the audience. But on the occasion of the Science Museum 10th anniversary, we inaugurated a great exhibition, Zero Gravity, in which European space activities and programs we are present from the perspective of space and Earth exploration and observation, exploring the universe, space for the Earth. Zero Gravity, where we can find the room, which is the main purpose on this presentation, where art and science merge. Where does the idea come from? Now Maria is going to tell us about it. This is her idea. It's not my idea. It's her idea. Okay. Okay.
So, this is my idea. This is an inspiration, actually, when we say when art. It is a little bit pretentious on my side, putting the Tate Modern in front of me, but was actually an inspiration. So when we are working and we're trying to find new ways of presenting, it's not even the presenting the ESA programs, it's really to reaching the public, other publics, as we were saying at the beginning. I remember entering in that place in the Tate Modern and I said, wow. So in that period, we were having the data of SOHO, one of our observatories, observing the sun. And we were working, so then I should now remove Olafur Eliasson's fantastic Tate Modern and go to something a bit more modest, of course, which was what we use in several ESA exhibitions. So we have done in Berlin, well, this is in Valencia, actually, where we arrived. And I am very, very proud to say that in that picture where we have been, Miriam and myself, we are, I think, the only persons in the world who have been in Titan, actually. So we are really proud. Titan, this is Saturn's moon, where we have landed a few years ago. And this is the farthest moon object landed in the solar system. So actually, thanks to this projection, using these means to impress, so this is the Vice President of the European Commission a few years ago, that was the Prince of Belgium, now the King. So actually using means to impress, to arrive to a completely different way, not informing, but impressing, touching.
Okay, so the video, now is Zero Gravity Room. we are going to see the video about this room. Okay. The multimirror projection room is a cube-shaped space whose interior sides are all covered by mirrors. This fact gives it the characteristic of kaleidoscope, and when you get inside, it invites you have feeling of weightlessness, of floating. You have to watch it. You have to experience it live. This space is a unique installation in which you feel transport to space through the magnificent images of nebulae, galaxies, planets obtained by ESA. All this accompanied by soundtracks thanks to composition to Eric Satie. Gynopédie, as we can appreciate, I think. I don't know, is listen? No. Entering this space is like entering into a known universe, beautiful and in a certain artistic way. The fusion between art and science and astronomy is perfectly embodied in this endless projection cube. The multiple reflections that occur in the room together with the spectacular images of the Earth observed from space and space itself together with this cluster generate a masterpiece. This multimedia installation is without doubt a good example of the connection that exists between science and art, and how both disciplines interact with each other where science becomes art and art science. The versatility of this room guarantees us the possibility of continuing to experiment with this type of representation of performances and exploring other ways of showing and bringing astronomy closer to the public. An audiovisual created specifically by the exhibition department of the ESA with aim of disseminating and letting known all the aspects, fields and values on which the mission, projects and research are based and founded is exhibited in the projection room made by the agency. This audiovisual shows 28 images that collect in one way or another all of the above mentions. From it, we highlight here some bits such as we can see. What are we seeing here? Our goal is that after visiting this installation, you leave it eager to know a little more about those images, how they were made, what they really are, what they represent, when they were made and by whom. For it, a publication was made where these images are explained, and it can currently be found on ESA website, even in the Cube main entrance. Before concluding, I would like to make a few brief remarks on the technical characteristic of this room. Here you are. There is an architectural relation between projection room and the museum. The most relevant is a capacity for 50 people. The ideal is the 20 people should be inside. And finally, I would like to end with just a few conclusions. We are in a new renaissance where art and science are coming together again. The transversality of these disciplines is necessary and represented in a multitude of projects, artistics, based on science and technology, and as scientific, they create undeniable masterpieces. As we have seen through the representation, there are many connections and links that exist between art and science. In summary, we can highlight the following. Artists and scientists seek answers to questions they don't have. Science and art are connected and share the same goal, to explore and understand our place in the universe. Collaboration between both disciplines are a source of knowledge, progress, and innovation. Getting to science through art is a means to use, since it can give us very interesting results at an educational, cultural, and training level. These images show some of projects presented at the year's Venice Biennale where science, technology, and art met. At this point, in time when experimentation and research are explored new ways of conceiving and merging science with other disciplines, and in particular with art, and they are fully committed and permitted. All of this implies a challenge that I consider necessary to be assumed by science museums, scientific institutions, artists, art centers, among others, through a collaboration work between professionals from different areas. Great results will be achieved. Any interaction and change of ideas, opinions, and sharing is the perfect combination to achieve success in any project. The collaboration between the City of Arts and Science and ESA has obtained these fantastic projects that I hope it hasn't left you indifferent. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So now, your turn.
Can you hear? Can you hear? Okay. I'm overwhelmed by this presentation, so I'm not going to do anything like it. When ESA first asked us to be in this session, we had a very long discussion about the title of this session. So art and space. How are we putting this together? And I said, we have nothing to say about this topic, to tell you the truth. When we think about art and science, is really a very large topic. When I think about art and science collaboration, I'm thinking about collaborations between those who do artistic research, so artists, and those who do scientific research, so scientists or technologists. We don't do either of them. So we are, basically, our business is that of engaging people in science. So we're not doing scientific research, we're not doing artistic research. We stand somewhere in the realm of these two research fields. And so I asked Maria, I said, please, can I not talk about art? Because we are not doing this. We do work with artists at the Science and Technology Museum in Milan, where I come from. We do try and intersect their research and try to understand, for example, from an educational point of view, how the creative process can be integrated in the STEM education process, for example. That is one research that we are carrying out. But we are not doing that much on the connection between artistic research and exhibition presentation, let's say, exhibition in the traditional sense. But still, we are here because in 2014, ESA approached us and presented us with an exhibition. Let's see if this works. An exhibition that was curated by ESA, by Viviana Panaccia. Very beautiful exhibition. The title is Fragility and Beauty, Taking the Pulse of Our Planet from Space. The title has actually been reviewed through the years, and the exhibition has been reviewed through the years, but we are hosting now the 3rd edition of this exhibition. And what is really interesting is that Viviana Panaccia decided to place at the core of this exhibition, which is an exhibition that aims to talk about climate change and sustainable development and all the themes that we are kind of all interested in at the moment. She decided to place at the center of this exhibition images from satellite, which is something that we now commonly use. You can see that really the core. It's quite a traditional exhibition. You have these very beautiful, large photographs from space, from different satellites. So you have from SkyMed, from Sentinel. And what happens with visitors is, of course, that you walk through these galleries and you are intrigued by the aesthetic of the image. So you're first hit by a purely aesthetic emotion, let's say. And then that is kind of an entry point to looking at what that image is and reading the information that's connected to each image. So again, the emotion, the visual emotion that you sense is a hook to something else that is more of an intellectual process that you're going through after that. And Viviana Panaccia also decided to insert some artworks from some artists. This, you can see the image behind is a picture from the Saudi Arabia desert, and she decided to have it in connection with this sculpture, which is a sculpture by Marco Vagnini, an Italian artist that's working really on cracking techniques of materials and of matter. And she decided to put these elements together. And again, she was working on a level of first emotional level. And so with Maria, we decided that we wouldn't talk about art, but we would talk about things that we do that somehow engage people on an emotional level and then on a different level. For us, the interesting thing about the satellite image, we are a collection-based museum, is that they are objects in themselves. And we know that objects hold an extreme power in various ways. These are real science objects. These are things that scientists use. And they're used for research, they're used for informing policy making, they're used for understanding the data. So they are scientific objects. They are tools of science before anything else. So for us, this was the interesting thing about those images. And objects we know, well, here our exhibition designers were playing, of course, with these images, because you can do lots of things. You can do lots of marketing with this. You can do lots of engagement. Here, they were playing with, is it a respiratory apparatus or is it a picture from Australia? So of course you can play around in communication with this very lot. It's very simple. But as I said, objects hold an intrinsic value. Real objects have an intrinsic value. It can be because they are beautiful in themselves. They have an intriguing shape. So we are spontaneously attracted to some objects. We don't need a lot of stuff around them. We don't need a lot of exhibition design around it. We can just use the object in itself. They can be intriguing because of their size. This is a one-to-one model of the Vega launcher that we have from Isia and Avio at our museum. So, of course, you see visitors, in front of a very large object. There's also an emotion there. They can be intriguing because of their symbolic value. So this is a moon rock that we have at the museum. It's a piece of stone, so in itself, it's not a very intriguing object. But of course, it carries with it a whole apparatus of symbolic and historical information and meaning for people. So really, the value of object is something that I think we need to rediscover also, especially now in a world of digitized information. But of course, our exhibition designers, they love to work on emotions in this, and they're working a lot on immersive. I think every one of us is working on immersive environments, because for people walking into immersive environments or seeing something in which they can participate somehow physically with their whole body is also very impactful experience. So here again is a replica of the cupola, from the International Space Station. So you walk in this space and you feel like you are in the International Space Station. And again, it's a way of engaging emotionally through putting yourself in a reality that is not the one that you were in 5 minutes ago. But I really wanted to kind of go through a number of projects that we've done, not with artists, but what we call creative industries. So we really like to work alongside people who have a different vision of how to narrate things. So we are very good at doing it, but there are people outside working in movies, working in literature, working in poetry, working in digital reality and media that do this every day, and we want to cross their paths as much as possible. So in this case, we were working with the national Italian broadcast, the RAI, and they have now in their program also a number of virtual reality movies that you can access. So we had experiences. I cannot take you inside the VR world, but in this case, this group of people was going through, again, it was a documentary about life on the International Space Station, so people were, of course, there in their full immersion. And we were trying to find ways to connect this experience with the experience of objects, of galleries, of curatorial information, of narratives. So again, we don't have an answer for this, but the research is always this, is how do we put together something that has been devised by someone who has a special sensitivity about the emotional side of experiencing things with the information we can give as a science museum. Here, so this is a small video. We've opened in February a new educational lab. We have 14 spaces that are dedicated to education. This one was developed within a larger project on middle school students from underserved areas. And the project was aiming to reduce the dropout from schools. And as you can see, again, there are some immersive environments there. What happens here, you go in as a group and you are divided into smaller groups, and you are told that you're walking into a space, Martian base, and you are a crew. You are there to support the coming of another set of people and scientists who are going to work on Mars. And you're there. The teams are tasked with different activities on nutrition, on energy, on health. And at one point, something goes wrong. Something is wrong in the base. And they need to work out what is wrong. And of course, they work through different activities. They work in smaller groups. They work as a team of teams, because no one knows where the problem is. And to do this whole experience, we worked with game designers, so board game designers and role-play designers. And what they helped us do was really harvest that quality of when you play a game in which you walk into an alternative reality where you're doing things that you might not do somewhere else. And we saw these kids walking into this activity, walking through this problem solving, and this partly open-ended and partly engineering problem solving activities, and walking outside and realizing they had done things that they never thought they could do. Because outside the game, they have such a burden of how people are looking at them, what teachers think of them, what society thinks of them, because they come from those neighborhoods, they have that cultural background, they have that, they come from countries, racism is still a problem everywhere, so that look that they have on them somehow disappears within the game experience, the playing experience. And so this is a research that we're doing on that particular feeling that you have when you are engaged in a game, which is very different from what we usually do in our labs, which is more about open play, open engagement, hands-on, etc. So again, working closely with those who are experts in emotions, in creating a set of emotions. And I'll go quickly now, actually. I've almost finished, sorry. Here, when we opened our renovation of our permanent space gallery, one of the sponsors was Sony, and at the same time they were working on this video game that was called Destiny. I'm terrible at video games, so I know nothing about it, but I'm told it's a very successful video game. And the designers of the video games had done some very good research to create these landscapes, these planetarium landscapes, either on the moon or on Mars or on different planets. And so we hosted some of these events at our museum. We were given some of the original drawings for the video game, so now these are part of the collections as well. And of course, at that point, the interesting thing for us was that we engaged a community that wasn't our usual community. Video gamers, they are nerds, so very often, so they do engage easily in science, but not all of them. So it was nice to work on that together. And yes, before you applaud, I just wanted to, there's no slide for this, but to tell you about one other thing that we're doing now. Now we're working on an online escape room. I don't know how many of you are familiar with escape rooms, but basically you have 1 hour to get out of a space or to solve a problem, and you work through a set of clues. And to devise those clues, we worked with the astronomical department and observatory in Milan, and they have a beautiful archive with the diaries from Schiaparelli and other documents. So we really tried to base all of the clues and all of the game that will be in this escape room on real documentation. So again, a way to bring together objects and real documents and archives with products of the creative industry. So to wrap it all up, really work together because we are very good at doing things, but when we do things on our own, they're kind of always halfway. So if one can go deep in collaboration, I think it's the best thing we can all do. And there are my contacts, and also Luca Reduzzi is the curator of our space collection, so if you have any questions that are more content related or program related, you can write to both of us. Thank you. I hope.
Thank you very much, Camila. Pedro.
This is my last slide, so I'm not sure. But maybe I have to go, you have to put all the way back to the first slide, no? Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Russo. I'm a university professor at Leiden University in the field of astronomy and society. And I'll try to guide you through a bit of our journey into the field of art and science. And of course, with a focus on astronomy and space sciences. And I think that was also kind of the requirements that I had for this session. So I'll try to meet them. And let me start by saying that we are the oldest university observatory in the world. Leiden Observatory was established in 1633, shortly after Galileo used the first time the telescope to observe the night sky, and we are quite proud. And in the last 5 to 6 years, we have been trying to use our beautiful building in the city center as a space where art can meet astronomy and where astronomy can really be used as a context for a lot of collaborations with the cultural and artistic communities in the Netherlands, but also around the world. Our journey started a couple of years ago, 5, 6 years ago, when we got a request from a very well-established artist, the studio Rosenharde. It's a very well-established Dutch artist that asked us if we could help them to create a rainbow at a train station in Amsterdam without just using a projector like this one. You really wanted to use the white light, and how could we really support to create a beautiful rainbow over the train station in Amsterdam. And we used the technology from some of the instruments that we have working in some of the most advanced telescopes to really decompose the white light that we see normally into this rainbow like you can see it in the real sky. So we use quite advanced technology, space technology, instruments like spectrographs and polarization lenses to create this beautiful rainbow. And also it was quite challenging to have it cut in half and not to have a complete circle, so we could not really obstruct the vision from the conductors of the trains and from the mechanists. So it was quite challenging. It was a beautiful project, but I think it was quite successful. And that was kind of the beginning of our exploration of collaborations between astronomy and the cutting edge aspect of it and art. Immediately after, we thought that we should invite an artist to be an artist in residence. So we invited a Dutch-based, but an artist from Ecuador called Oscar Santillan. That was our first artist in residence. And he developed these beautiful projects that really tried to reflect on the role and the perspectives and methodologies that we have in astronomy on space sciences. And one of the first projects that I think was very interesting was about the Atacama Desert. The Atacama Desert is one of the locations of some of the most advanced instruments for astronomy. This is the beautiful, very large telescope, 4 telescopes operated and managed by the European Southern Observatory, a lot of European countries contributing to create these beautiful buildings, and it's one of the most driest places on Earth, the Atacama Desert. So what Oscar did, he kind of used the sand from the Atacama Desert to create lenses that could then be used to photograph the night sky. So using the raw materials where these telescopes are built, create the lenses, and then use it to really take a picture of the night sky. And this is then, it's an art piece that helps us to reflect what is the role of science and astronomy, a science that seems so far away, into the communities where you are established. And reflects about the use of land, reflects about how can we use these places, and it's been a very, very interesting project, and it's been showing this in many, many other places. The other project that we worked with him was to create a kind of almost a telescope with the clay of the materials that you can also find on the surface of Venus. So we know quite well the composition of the soil of Venus, and we found a similar composition of this soil on Earth, actually in the islands in Azores of Portugal. And we used that clay to build this kind of artifact that now is connected to a mount that is always pointing to Venus. It's also about this reflection of we looking at an object, understanding what is there, and using that material also for our own interpretation. Oscar is a wonderful artist. You should check some of these materials, and uses a lot of these concepts of science for a lot of his works. Later on, in September, we worked with Sarah Petkus, that was also an artist in residence at ESTEC, the European Space Agency, and she's still working on the project that she started with us in September. And she uses she works a lot with these robotics, and like the previous speaker talked about the emotions, and how can we bring this emotional aspect of exploring the universe. They have the astronauts, this excitement. How can we bring that excitement and emotions into the robots that they seem so detached from emotions? So all our work is about emotions and robotics, and how can we really use that as an artistic expression. And I think Sarah has been doing also is a very interesting artist, and we collaborated with her. We also an exhibition space, an engagement space, and we've been curating exhibitions, and I will talk about 3 of them. The first one is this Drake equation. it's a photo exhibition by two photographers, an American and an Austrian artist, that they spent almost 6 months in a remote community in the United States where some of the most advanced radio telescopes are established. This community in Green Bank is one of the most remote communities in the United States, and that was the reason why we, astronomers, decided to build radio telescopes there, because there's very few people living there, so we can observe the night sky with the radio waves without a lot of interference of electromagnetic interferences of your mobile phones, of microwaves, etc. Actually, if you live there, you cannot have a mobile, you cannot have Wi-Fi, you cannot have a microwave, your fridge needs to be quite special. So they decided to spend 6 months there. They did this beautiful photo exhibition that we then had in Leiden. And the whole photo exhibition is about the relationship between astronomers living in this community, the local community that cannot use technology, and the new community that moved there because they want to be far away from electromagnetic radiations. They call themselves the electromagnetic sensitives, and it's people that don't believe in technology. So we have this, at the same time, we have this place where you have some of the most advanced technology and some people that really don't want to live with technology, and then the community of hunters and farmers living together, and also poses a lot of questions about the relationship of technology, science, advancement, who do we bring along, etc. So this is, we had this exhibition for shortly before the pandemic, and then during the pandemic, open and closed. I think we all went through that, and we have this beautiful space that also is very nice for photo exhibitions. As part of the same topic, we then hosted an exhibition, art exhibition from local artists of the locations of the construction of the next largest radio telescope, the Square Kilometre Array, that's going to be built in South Africa and in Australia. And we have been working with local artists from the communities, indigenous communities from these lands, the guardians of these lands, Aboriginal people in Australia, and the San people in the Karoo Desert in South Africa, and they brought into paintings and tapestry their own mythologies, interpretations, and cosmologies of the night sky. And this exhibition is going around, and was promoted by SKA, and also help us to understand how knowledge is developed, how our ancestors looked at the night sky, how this knowledge can be also serve as foundation for the understanding that we have of the universe nowadays. We just closed this exhibition, actually this week, and it was very successful, and we have these beautiful art pieces. And we are now about to open a new one from the 1st of July, and is More Than Planet. We are doing this together with the Vach Society, our colleagues in Amsterdam, as part of the STARTS initiative. And it's going to be really about using space to look down, and what does it mean in terms of artistic interpretation of looking at the planet. So we're going to have a lot of different artworks, and it's a curated experience, so these artworks already exist, and we selected some of, for us, some of the best interpretations of using space data, Earth observations for artistic impressions. So we are really looking forward to this exhibition. And on the 11th of July, we're going to have a small symposium on the occasion of the opening, so you are all invited to come to Leiden, but I'll talk a bit more about this. So I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about one of our, let's say, flagship projects in terms of art and science collaborations, and one of the reasons why we got invited. Last year, we had a close collaboration with the Netherlands Dance Theatre. It's one of the top modern dance companies in the world. And we developed this project together, and we were quite happy with the outcome, even if at the end there was not a performance or an object to show. But I'll tell you more about that. All started because of this mission. It's a super exciting mission from the European Space Agency. It's called Euclid mission. It's going to really look at not only our understanding of the universe, but also trying to understand how large-scale structures start in the universe, first galaxies, understanding dark matter, and then understanding dark energy. And if you want to know more about these topics, you can come to me afterwards, even if we don't know that much about them. But I'll try to explain you a bit what they are. And me, and together with one of the co-PIs of the mission, that is a colleague at Leiden, Henk Hoekstra, we decided to approach NDT. We really thought that this idea of a very enigmatic universe, we don't know 95% of the universe. We know that it's very dynamic, and we know that this dynamic is essential for us to understand how the universe works. The way the objects in the universe work is the way that we understand how the universe works. So we thought that this could be a very good starting point for a project in collaboration with a modern dance company. So that's what we did. We wrote them. This is part of the email. And then we started a collaboration that's called Open Space. It was a free exploration platform for some of the top talent in the field of modern dance for 2 weeks. We call it a scientist in residence because there was 3 astronomers, me, Hank, and one of our PhD students, that we spent 2 weeks fully immersed into the dance company, working together with 3 choreographers, 3 composers, and 50 dancers of the company. And for 2 weeks, we explored topics of science, topics of space, topics of astronomy. And it was a free exploration. There was almost no agenda. We could develop this project at our own pace, but always a very fast pace. These people work hard. They are incredible. They are very productive, very creative, and it was really a truly inspiring experience. Some of the shots of the whole experience. And this is one of the dancers that then, at the end, when we did a bit of his feedback, and here I think what we see is that also for the dancers and choreographers, they looked at the methodologies that we use in science, including the scientific method, the idea that we are always looking actually for the next question and not necessarily for the next answer. And that helped her a lot to reflect what does it mean also in her own work if she reaches somewhere. So it was really more about methodologies, comparing the way that the creative process works in art, the creative process works in science, to reflect on that and to really see how can we advance both fields using methodologies from the arts and from space, sciences, and how can we really support each other. I was telling you that we didn't have a performance at the end, but 2 of the curators further developed these ideas and have been working with us, and we expect to show some of the results on stage at the end of the year in December 2022 on the occasion of Leiden 2022. So we are still working with them after more than a year, and we expect to have a performance at the end of this year. Just to finish, for us at Leiden Observatory, we really want to create this platform for advancing the relationship between space, astronomy, and society, but really through arts and cultures. And for us, some of the practical lessons learned that we have, and so I'm going to go here, is that for us, we always look as astronomy or space or science in art and science collaborations as the context, not the driver. As scientists, when we engage with art and science collaborations, I don't think that we should be the ones demanding things to happen, or this needs to be this way because science is this accurate. It's about providing context. Be open about that. Also, we don't see art and science as a public engagement exercise by itself. We really see it as a way to start conversations about land occupation, about relationships between technology and people that don't believe in technology, about methodologies that we use in science. So it's not really about telling you how science works. And also I think it's a good way for us that come from the scientific field to reflect about our own work, much more to tell artists about data and images and the scientific method. It's helping the question that they ask the questions that they pose to reflect about our own practice of science in society, what role should we have in society. So this is kind of some of the lessons learned from our last 5 years. To finish, I'm based in Leiden, and this year we are hosting the European Open Science Forum, ESOF, but we are also the European City of Science. We are celebrating science along the years, 2022, and in the week of the 12th to the 18th of September, we have this Art and Science Week. So if you are interested in this topic, I think it's a good occasion to come and visit Leiden. We're going to have a lot of the exhibitions, including our own Modern Planet. So please come to Leiden and see some of our art and science projects. And I'll just finish with my contacts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Camila. Thank you, Miriam. I hope you all found these presentations interesting. I find them very interesting. And I hope that this helps you to construct bridges between art, science, culture, experiences. And now I give the floor to Anna.
Sorry. Okay, no, you don't give the floor to me. You give the floor to you, because now, as promised, is your turn. So I have here Luigi Amodio.
Hello, I'm Luigi Amodio from Naples, Città della Scienza, and 2 years ago we had a session that was not together with Camilla on art and science in Ljubljana, and my presentation was about a show we organized in Ravello. Ravello is a place on the Amalfi Coast, and is the place where Wagner wrote the Parsifal, so it's very popular for this reason, and each year it hosts a classical music festival. And we, from Città della Scienza, organized on the 16th of July, 2019, a concert based on music linked to the moon during a moon eclipse. So it was very, very nice because the piano player was playing music like Clair de Lune of Debussy or the well-known Beethoven sonata, etc., while during the eclipse. And of course, if you remember, we had the 50th anniversary of the landing of man on the moon. And so it was an event dedicated to this topic. And it was very, very nice because, of course, the natural landscape was absolutely incredible with the moon disappearing during the concert. And so this was the content of the presentation at Excite 2020. Another thing I want to remember is that we had in Italy some years ago a very nice exhibition. It was organized by the National Institute of Nuclear Physics together with the Italian Space Agency. The title was Gravity, Imagining the Universe After Einstein. And it was a sort of contemporary art exhibition, was based on contemporary artworks at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome. So if you check on the internet, you can find it was a very interesting interpretation of cosmology and astrophysics by the point of view of contemporary artists. In November, we will open a small exhibition on space in Città della Scienza, and we are also going to exhibit some of the artworks that were produced in that exhibition, but we are looking also for other piece of art to be presented. Thank you.
Thank you. So, more questions, speeches, ideas? Over there.
5 und die 6 auf den Monitor legen müssen, sonst hören die nichts.
Thank you. My name's Rick Horton. I'm a creative director at a design company. I was very fortunate several years ago to hear Stephen Jay Gould speak, the American naturalist who's sadly passed away now, but his lecture was how artistic styles through the decades changed the interpretation of scientific illustration, and how in the Art Nouveau or Art Deco you would get very curly octopi or to illustrate your encyclopedia. And now we have computer-generated images which are still interpretations of radio data, for instance, which have been colorized by artists. And I wondered if there was any thoughts in interpretation of space that the panel might have on how they have seen how space has been changed in our interpretation through the creative arts.
Thank you. This is really a very nice question, because I don't know if any of your images, Camilla, was based, for example, on raw data, ways to visualize raw data, or if they were just Earth observation data, which is also data after all, but it's more visual.
Yeah, they were not colorized, so they were not, there was no, let's say, human interpretation if you exclude the fact that, of course, the computers, they colorize by human programming, so in a way there's a human interpretation there. But I think there is a big push now in terms of visual representations of data, and I think the artists are obviously, contemporary artists are obviously using science and scientific data and technology as a matter for their research, or as a subject of their research. This is quite obvious. We have extremely incredible examples in art residencies and such of how this is happening in the art world. There's not as much in the scientific world. I mean, I know, for example, CERN organizes artistic residencies with the idea that artists influence the scientists' work. But I personally I don't think there is a deep enough research on if this is happening or not. But it's true that scientists are working on how to visualize their data in shapes that are informed by art. So in that area, at least, I feel that there is an influence on scientific action. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Maybe
yeah.
I can comment
Yeah.
a bit also about your question that I think maybe some of our colleagues don't know, but most of the astronomical images or space images that we have, usually they are composed with different wavelengths. They get then combined. We have images from optical, what we see. We can have radio. We can have X-rays. And then for us to visualize it, we need to provide color profiles to these different wavelengths. And then we see these sometimes outstanding, astonishing images from the sky, but they are quite far from what our naked eye will look at these images. But in the community, there's some type of color dictionary where we give the same color to the same wavelengths or some specific filters, so we can kind of almost compare the images and we'll have the same type of look and feel if you're looking at the same things. So there's a bit of a common language in the community that processes these images for the public, but of course it's still very much free for interpretation of the artist that is working with them.
Please.
I'm thinking about the reliance that all of you have on visual information rather than sound and tactile, the other sensory information. And sonification of data is one thing that has interpretive artistic potentials. What would be the value, do you think, of more, moving more into other sensory interpretations?
Maybe I can start. Of course, in our last project is very visual, but it's of course also at the same time not only a visual medium, right? It's through dance. We also work with some composers that they were looking at the sonification of some of the data and some of the sounds they already have from the universe. And the sonification of data is a big field in space sciences, not only for artistic impressions, but there's also a large community of astronomers that they are visually impaired, so some of them completely blind, that they've been using sonification to actually do research. So they look at the data, they transform the data into sounds, they listen to the data, and they can do their own research on the data using sounds. So it's not only as an artistic impression, but also as a research tool. And and they have been working as a community. All their material is available freely. You can download the software, and they're really being empowering and providing access to typically communities that will not be able to do research in astronomy that now are able because these tools exist.
More hands?
Regarding your question, I wanted only to say that maybe you could go past to the east black tent that is in the middle of the exhibition area. And there is an astronomer who works on precisely what you asked, like what would be the value of moving into other sensitive interpretations. And he's trying to do space representations of galaxies and nebulae, like with the hand, like tactile, and how the space within these areas would look like. He's an astronomer, so go past.
Yeah, go and check it because he's one of the members of this community and he's been doing incredible work and is one of the developers of this community.
Yeah.
So I would answer also to that. We had some artistic residences at Ciencia Viva some years before, where we had artists in residence at science laboratories and universities. And one of the things, several projects that appeared used sonification. I remember one who had made a sonification of meteorological data of a city during the whole year. And it was transformed into a very nice music that when it rained, for example, you would hear some little sounds. You would perfectly understand what was the frequency of rain in the city. It was really, really very impressive.
There was a question on the left.
Thank you very much. My name is Barbara, and I want to ask Pedro one question. I'm wondering, how do you find your topics, or how do you start asking questions, or even how do you select the artists for Artist in Residence? Thank you.
So the first artist in residence for our program was a direct contact from the artist to us. He contacted us, and then we had the opportunity and some of the funding available to host him to be artist in residence. And luckily for the second one, that was Sarah Petkus, we collaborated with the STARTS initiative together with the colleagues at Ars Electronica, and we had an open call for artists in residence, and we received around 110 applicants. And this is to show the need, and I think the interest is out there, and Sarah was the selected one. And it was a quite difficult process to select because some artists were really interesting. But there's a massive, artists are looking at science as a way to express themselves. And I think there's a massive interest. And so we now have an open call for our art and residence programs. Usually we set a topic, but then we expect them to apply through a process, so a portfolio, CV, and concept notes for the things that they would like to explore.
complete the question, how do you choose them between the hundreds of applicants?
I was involved in the selection. There was 2 scientists and 2 curators, artists involved, including Oscar, our previous artist in residence. So we always had an artist, a curator, and 2 scientists involved in the selection process.
Thank you.
Oh, can I add on that question? Is what what are the criteria? So what are the guidelines for the type of research? What research are you looking for?
Our criteria was quite open, also because we set the research areas that we have in our own research institute, so the artists had access to that. But we knew that also for the artists, we didn't want them to spend a lot of time in the proposal. So we just asked them to write one, let's say, motivation letter that could connect their practice as artists with the research that is happening. And we provide kind of the boundary conditions. How long was the residency? How much funding was available? What kind of additional support was available? So they knew what were the conditions before applying, and that was pretty much the requirements.
I'm going to bug you after.
We are arriving to the end.
Sorry,
please?
Can I just, because I'm definitely going to go in depth in this. There is an art and science meetup tomorrow afternoon. I'm saying this because maybe some of us are interested. So please come if you feel that you have something to say or to ask in this area as well. Absolutely. Because we can continue the discussion.
So, you are all invited to continue this discussion in the coffee breaks or the dinners, who knows. This is a hot topic, as we heard. Artists are looking for this kind of information, scientific context, so they are out there, so engage with them to enlarge your audiences. We have also discussed how the relationship between art and science is not just a new method of science engagement, it is more than that, because artists and scientists search for the same questions about our condition in the universe, and we have heard that you must work together, not trying to introduce art yourselves in your science centers, but work with artists. You have heard here methodologies on how to do that and what are different forms of engagement. And I also, it was also remarked that scientists provide context. So don't go and ask an artist, do me a painting like this and with these colors. No, you must work together with them for a joint, it's really a co-work. And another interesting thing I retained is that the questions that artists pose make us reflect on our relation, on the relation between science and society. This is something that is generally echoed by many scientists who collaborate with artists. So thank you for coming, and please don't forget that we are the Excite Space Group, so we always have a session, and it's, I hope, funny and always useful, I hope at least.
If you want to meet us, we are also in the exhibition area, so in the Business Bistro. We will be there for the rest of the conference. Okay.